In September 2014, 59-year-old wife and mother Jill Halliburton Su was found by her 20-year-old son dead in her bathroom. 2 knives were found out of place in the house, but only one was the murder weapon. A single room in the home had been ransacked, but the rest of the house was largely spotless. The security system provided a live feed of an intruder, visible in real time to Jill's husband as he sat at work, unable to intervene. The murder appeared to be personal, but the scene suggested a botched burglary, or was it staged? When the alleged perpetrator was finally arrested, the case made even more headlines. Over 7 years later, the case has been closed, but many questions remain. Let's take a look. Jill Halliburton Su was the grandniece of the founder of the Halliburton oil empire. She met her husband, Nan Yao, while on her junior year abroad in Japan, where Nan Yao's family had relocated from Taiwan. Jill graduated Michigan State University with a master's degree and then joined Nan Yao in Hawaii, where he had entered a PhD program. The couple started their family after they relocated to Florida in the early 1990s, where Nan Yao was offered a faculty position at the state university. There they had 2 children, Amanda, followed 3 years later by Justin. Jill stayed at home with the kids. As her children grew older, she began to volunteer her time to charities more and more, logging over 1,000 hours over 9 years as a reader for the visually impaired. In 2014, Jill Su was 59 years old. The family had a beautiful home situated in a gated community in the town of Davie, which is about 25 miles north of Miami. In August of that year, Jill and Nan Yao left for a 2-week trip to Malaysia, leaving their 20-year-old son Justin with the house to himself. Shortly before leaving, they had also decided that a video surveillance system for the house may be a good investment, so they started a 30-day free trial. The day after returning from their trip was the 8th of September, a Monday. Justin left the house sometime around 9 a.m. that morning to attend his college classes. Nan Yao set out for work a bit later on, at around 11:30, maybe closer to 11:40 a.m. Their daughter Mandy had moved out years prior, so Jill was at home that day, alone. Once at work, Nan Yao checked the live video feed from the house on his phone, as had become his habit since starting the security system trial. What he saw that morning was concerning. There appeared to be a strange man, an apparent intruder inside of his house. Nan Yao called his son Justin right away, initially hoping it was a joke being played by his son. When they spoke, however, it became clear that this was no joke, and Justin promptly drove home to check on his mother. He made it back to the house at 12:37, roughly an hour from the time that his father had left, but the house was not as Justin had left it. Going through the master bedroom to the bathroom, he found his mother. Jill was in the bathtub, face down, bound, bleeding, and not responsive. Justin pulled his mother from the tub and he began to perform CPR. He then called 911. He told the dispatcher that his mother had committed suicide, that she had stabbed herself and thrown herself in the bathtub. His father would later recount that Justin was frantic after finding his mother and not making a lot of sense. When Nan Yao arrived, emergency services had beat him to the property. He could not understand why the responders were no longer working to save his wife. He understood only later that it had been far too late to save Jill. Jill Su died that morning. She had suffered an estimated 26 distinct stab wounds. In addition to the intruder that Nan Yao spotted on his security feed, the house showed physical signs of a break-in. Jewelry boxes in the master bedroom appeared to have been rifled through. Dresser drawers had been pulled open and left in disarray. There was also damage to the closet, where investigators deduced that an alarm had been pulled from the wall. Broken glass and a busted patio door near to the master bedroom suggested a means of entry and left broken shards of glass scattered on the floor. The front door to the house was reportedly locked. Just outside of it was a knife discarded on the ground. Inside the same door, a looped green belt was lying on the ground in the foyer. Jill had been discovered bound with electrical wire, leading investigators to believe that this green belt had likewise been used to restrain her at some point during the attack. There were numerous markings on the walls and floors. and in the bedroom near to the bathroom, a broken vase, a pillow showing blood, as well as spatter in this area on the carpet. The evidence suggested that a struggle had occurred. Inside the bathroom, a second knife was found resting in the bottom of the bathtub. Either this knife or both knives were thought to be likely candidates as the murder weapon. 2 knives could also have suggested 2 attackers. They were collected for forensic analysis, along with the belt left in the foyer. Investigators ruled out a likely robbery rather quickly. Although the master bedroom showed multiple signs of a potential burglar, the rest of the house was left untouched. In addition, there was nothing that was identified as missing. While early theories were still being formed, investigators brought in the men of the household for questioning. By all accounts, the Su's had a happy marriage. Money was not an issue. Not only was Jill thought to have family inheritance, but her husband was independently wealthy. An internationally recognized termite expert, he had invented a termite management system that was manufactured by Dow Chemical. When he spoke with police, he told them of the intruder he had viewed on the home surveillance system. The man was masked, he said, or perhaps had concealed his face with a scarf. He appeared to be young, thin, and white. He is asked about his reaction when spotting the intruder. Nanyao explained that he thought it was possible that his son Justin was playing a prank because he knew his father watched the cameras. Justin also admitted to sometimes blocking the cameras when he held parties, as he had just done a couple days prior, for example.
When I was in Malaysia, I was giving a talk, presentation or something. I was very busy. And then my cell phone ringing. It's from my gatehouse. It's like, at night, Florida time. And it says, I didn't pick up the phone, but I know what the call is about. They probably want to get somebody get into my house. Because the way it works is they will call some phone here and there and to see if they can get this one person in or not. But I didn't pick up the phone. I have no idea who is trying to get in. But I immediately turned on my camera from the dining room side, because the other side of the camera was being, he put a cap on it to disable it, although we can still hear the voice. But the other phone, I can look at here to see some people moving there. Some of his friends are coming over. So immediately text message and say, why on the weekday you have friend over? You're not supposed to do that. On the weekday, you're supposed to devote your time for study. So do not do that, and whoever is there, get them out. I don't want to see these people in my house. And he obviously, text message one more time and say, I'm sorry, would never happen again, and everybody's out. And those type of things, we get into it. Because he liked to have his friend over, and but he is kind of aware of the fact that we do not necessarily like him to do that on a weekday when he's supposed to do a study. So he only go out on the weekend. But he's rather want to hang around with his friend a lot more than doing with us. That's the only thing I can think of.
Nanyao also helpfully suggested that as 2 cameras were unplugged, that the murderer must have been someone who knew about the new security system and perhaps the exact camera placement.
The other thing I can think of is whoever did this know where the security camera is, because both of them being unplugged indicate that they know this camera.
Well, let me ask you, who knows where these security cameras?
My son.
Okay. He's the only one. You guys don't have people over. You haven't talked to that. Okay. You have a large amount of valuables inside the house?
No.
Okay. You ever had any enemies, any problems with anybody? Have you ever had any kind of incidents like this before? Somebody trying to break into your home or anything like that?
No. We lived in that house for 14 years.
Okay.
Never break in at all.
You mentioned that your son was away for a while. How long was he away?
2 years.
And from what time frame to what time frame? Like, when did he come back?
He come back this year's May. So subtract 2 years is how long he's been away.
So he left in 2012, more or less?
For the 2 years that Justin had spent away from home, he was studying at Stetson University based in Central Florida. But he had quickly found himself on academic probation. By the autumn of 2014, Justin had dropped out and moved back home. He was taking classes at the local community college, but his relationship with his parents had become strained over the ordeal. It's probably not surprising that the first suspicions of investigators landed on Justin. When police arrived at the house that morning following the 911 call, he remained what was reported as spotless from the waist down, an indication that perhaps he had tried to change his clothing before law enforcement arrived. It was also telling, thought police, that both knives found at the scene had been his. The one in the bathtub had been a gift from his mother for his knife collection. During Justin's interview, he first told police that he was in school that morning, and then later admitted he was sleeping in his car in the school parking garage. Justin said he had driven home after speaking with his father and then immediately went to his room to drop off his keys and his wallet. There, he noticed his knife drawer was open. He promptly went to check on his mother. Detectives jumped on that detail, questioning why he would have gone to his room first and not immediately checked on Jill. Justin was questioned for no less than 10 hours on the day his mother died. He was held for closer to 13. For the first 6 hours, the detectives were quiet and accommodating to the 20-year-old. He had just experienced an unimaginable tragedy that morning. But after the 6-hour mark, the tone began to shift, sharply. The detectives pushed the theory that Justin killed his mother and staged a burglary.
So you told 911 she killed herself in the bathtub?
That's what I thought.
But she was already out.
That's what I told my dad.
She was already out when you were on the phone now.
Yeah.
So by that point you knew that she hadn't killed herself in the bathtub.
No. Honestly, I don't know.
But that's not what you said. There's gonna be a lot of you trying to remember your own lives.
No, it's not, man. Like I said, man, like...
And that's gonna be a lot harder for you.
I don't know, dude. Once I saw my mom's body, man, I don't know.
You know what it is? You thought you were smarter than everybody else, and now you're trying to remember your own lies, and you're eating it. It's much harder to try to remember your lies.
I'm so stressed right now, man. Like, I'm... do anything though.
Yes, you did. You killed your mother.
I didn't. I didn't.
Your mother.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No, I didn't, sir.
You did. 1,000%.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
1,010% sure didn't.
Nope, you did it.
No, I didn't.
Bro, it's obvious you did.
No, I didn't.
So obvious.
No, I didn't.
You did it.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I didn't try covering up anything. I didn't try doing anything. I didn't just stay.
Yeah, you did.
I was at BC the whole time, dude.
Trying to give dispatch a 1,000 different reasons why it happened. When you know well, you
What do
just
you mean
brought her
give
out.
dispatch 1,000 reasons?
Yeah.
What
You switched it up like 10 times on him.
What'd I say?
I'm not gonna tell you what you said.
Dude, I was so confused. I thought...
I know what you said because I took detailed notes about what you said.
Okay.
Okay, so you don't remember what you said because you're trying to remember what you said.
Detectives spent another 3 hours interrogating Justin in the same manner. The younger man's voice turned hoarse from screaming back at them that he had nothing to do with his mother's death. The approach being employed by the detectives appeared to consist of accusing him, harshly and repeatedly. Crucially, the investigators had not determined what Justin's motive would have been.
I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I couldn't have done it
Why couldn't you have done it?
because I love my mom
Mm-hmm.
and I love my family. I wouldn't want to destroy it. She was the glue in our family, man. She held our family together. Like, honestly, I can't even see living with my dad. It'd be crazy. Like, it's really strict and shit. I need her. I needed her in my life. I need her in my life still. She's gone. Like, I don't know what else I can say, man. But I didn't do it. I love my mom, and someone's framing me, I guess.
Justin told investigators that he expected an apology when they found out that they were wrong. That apology would come a week and a half later. Justin was cleared as a suspect after DNA results on the knives and the green belt were returned from the crime lab. The knife located outside the front door, as well as the belt discarded inside, both showed a match to another 20-year-old man. That man's name is Deontay Raziles. Deontay lived roughly 20 miles from the Su's gated community and had acquired a criminal history of traveling to nearby upscale neighborhoods, breaking into homes, and making off with valuables. Deontay had no links to the Su family or their house, yet DNA placed him not only inside, but on key items connected to the murder. Investigators now had a new theory. Deontay Raziles broke into the Su home and was surprised by Jill's presence. A struggle ensued. Deontay then killed Jill so she would be unable to identify him. Deontay Omar Raziles is known to his family as Moochie, a nickname he may have earned because as a child, he ate so much. Growing up in Fort Lauderdale, Deontay was an atypical child. He stood out. He excelled at school from an early age, was adored by his teachers, and was a voracious reader. By his teenage years, however, Deontay was acting out and getting into trouble. He complained that his classes had become extremely boring to him, so he began to skip out and spent time with the wrong crowd. By the age of 18, he had accumulated 8 juvenile arrests, mostly for burglary. But Deontay did not have a history of violence. According to previous arrest warrants, his method of operation involved renting expensive cars and wearing disguises that could help explain his presence in the wealthy neighborhoods he targeted. At 19, he was arrested by Boca Raton police while driving a rented Mercedes-Benz and wearing a bright green fluorescent construction vest. In another instance, when he entered a home where the residents had not left, instead of attacking the homeowner, he simply fled. Moochie was known around his neighborhood as a kind of Robin Hood-like figure. He was very generous with his stolen wealth, paying for others' energy bills and back rent payments, dropping $1,000 a time in diaper and food trips at Walmart for struggling single mothers. He was also known as a bit of a ladies' man. On the 18th of September 2014, when the DNA led to his arrest for the murder of Jill Halliburton Su, Deontay was an expectant father, a well-loved and adored brother, son, and neighbor. No one believed that he was capable of what he had been accused. Deontay faced a potential death sentence if convicted of Jill Su's murder. He was held in custody without bond while the public defender's office pulled together his defense. They were optimistic that a pretrial hearing addressing a motion to remove the death penalty as an option would be successful. By the summer of 2016, however, Deontay remained in custody. During this time, he had become a father to a daughter who was already approaching 2 years old. Unable to do much about his legal situation, Deontay began to plan his escape. From the jail, he managed to connect with 3 different women, each of which believed they were his girlfriend, and coordinated a plan. He also reached out to family members, including 2 cousins, and asked for small amounts of cash. $100 for bond, another $100 for a new suit for trial. Then on July 15th of that year, as he entered the courtroom for his pretrial hearing and sat down, he managed to unlatch his handcuffs and ankle shackles, shed his jail jumpsuit, and made a break for an exit located in a side stairwell. None of the lawyers or bailiffs inside the courtroom appeared to notice what was happening until it was too late. One bailiff was caught on camera running after him while others stood in confusion. Pushing through the north exit without triggering an alarm, he jumped into a nearby waiting vehicle and drove off.
21-year-old murder suspect is not in custody at this time. This escape was pre-planned. We know that Raziles had accomplices. We are actively serving search warrants and applying for search warrants as we speak. I hope and pray that our deputies or any law enforcement that comes in contact with him are able to put him in custody and are unharmed. I hope Raziles is unharmed, but he is armed and dangerous.
From the jailhouse using a process of 3-way calling, Deontay had managed to connect with multiple individuals undetected by jailhouse monitors and coordinated his escape. One of Deonte's girlfriends had arranged a change of clothing for him, and along with another accomplice, Winston Russell, they had waited for him outside of the side exit of the courthouse building. His two cousins, Creighton and Trayvon Barnes, played lookout inside the courtroom, notifying the getaway vehicle of Deonte's escape and his direction of travel by cell phone. Bailiffs, seemingly completely unaware of what had transpired, watched in amazement while Deonte ran from the room. A fellow inmate, Walter Hart, had allegedly loosened Deonte's handcuffs using a key that Deonte had acquired from a jail guard. This guard was later determined to be yet another willing accomplice. The guard was later fired, or he may have resigned. The reward for information leading to Deonte's capture steadily increased throughout the week following his escape to $50,000. There were reported sightings of him coming in from throughout the country. Flights from Florida airports were checked amongst rumors that he had somehow caught a flight to Haiti. Meanwhile, people in his community approached for questioning outright refused to assist police. Local media reported neighbors telling investigators that even if they did know where Deonte was, they wouldn't give up the information in exchange for the cash reward. Many others actively called in fake tips about his whereabouts in attempts to hinder his capture. Eventually, however, one of the tips received was genuine. Police tracked Deonte to a Days Inn in West Palm Beach. Multiple SWAT teams descended on the rental room where he had been hiding, eating pizza, and waiting for an opportunity to make his next move.
He came out of the room. He surrendered without incident. He laid on the ground. He allowed us to handcuff him. No force was necessary. There's a great sense of relief. You know, we had a man who's on trial for murder. The state attorney is seeking the death penalty. It's a very, it doesn't get more serious than that. He's back in custody, and Broward County in South Florida is a safer place.
A lot of people question themselves, well, if he's innocent, why would he escape? I'll be the person to answer it for you. I currently have a daughter in which I have not seen or held from birth. Not only that, you tell me if you have been placed in jail for a crime you know nothing about or never committed, would you sit in jail? Let me answer it for you logically. No, there were and still is trying to kill me by lethal injection. I don't know if you ever witnessed it happen. You should go to YouTube or read up on it. My voice was not heard when I pleaded my innocence. It went overlooked. I refuse to be one of those inmates that gets his sentence overturned because there was flaws that went overlooked and were later discovered. Again, I will say it. My name is Deonte Rezeus and I am innocent.
Multiple additional charges were added to Deonte's list of indictments following his capture. He was also restricted from communicating inside the jailhouse with anyone but his lawyer. But Deonte proved to be persistent in his attempts to beat the system. The next year, in 2017, an investigation began after a jail officer reported to supervisors that Deonte had attempted to bribe him in a letter to smuggle in a cell phone. The officer reported the letter, so Deonte was given a phone, a wiretapped one. And throughout the next several months, Broward County Sheriff's Office, in coordination with the FBI, listened in and tracked roughly 1,200 phone calls and text messages from the monitored phone. The RICO investigation, dubbed Operation Rico Suave, revealed the assistance in various ways of 9 individuals willing to help Deonte produce false evidence for his trial, including a fake alibi. Believing the calls were not being recorded, Deonte called friends and asked them to testify that he'd been in Georgia when the murder happened, even though his cell phone records showed he was in Fort Lauderdale that day. It was late 2021 before Deonte went to trial.
You reach a verdict that speaks the truth and hold Deonte Rezeus responsible for the murder of Jill.
The DNA evidence is not going to show you who killed Jill Su. It's not going to prove that Deonte Rezeus killed Jill Su.
The defense team pointed the finger at Justin Su and attempted to discount the DNA evidence. They also suggested that an insufficient amount of attention had been paid to Nan Yao as the potential suspect in the days after the murder. When Nan Yao took the stand, he altered slightly his recollection of the video surveillance footage that he had viewed that morning. No longer claiming that the partially concealed man was thin and white, but testifying instead that he couldn't be sure what he saw. In an incredible twist of fate, the video footage itself had been deleted. The 30-day trial of the video security system had expired almost exactly on the day of the murder. The surveillance company, therefore, had already deleted all of the video taken at the Su home, including the images of the intruder that Nan Yao had viewed. Nan Yao told the court about how both he and his son Justin had been distraught with grief upon finding Jill. A pool worker present that morning, as well as the first responding officer, also testified to the frantic and distraught state in which they found Justin.
He was totally panicked. His voice was shaking. He was just screaming something. They rolled the stretcher, covered with blanket. And that's when I lost it. I screamed at the medical people. Revive her. Do something. She can't be dead.
Without the video evidence, eyewitness testimony was employed by the defense to poke holes in the state's case. A neighbor of the Su family testified that they saw someone that morning who appeared to be pushing something heavy through the front door of the house. The witness could not say that it was a body or describe what the object could have been, though it was speculated to be large enough to actually require 2 individuals to get it through the door. They were also unable to describe if the person they saw was black or white, or if they were assisted by someone on the inside of the doorway. There were additional questions with the case against Deontay. No one had reported seeing him at or near the house on the day of the murder, and video footage from the guard gates didn't show him entering. There were also questions about his motivations. If his plan was to commit burglary, why stab the homeowner aggressively multiple times, rummage through a single room of the home, and then leave with nothing? But Deontay could not explain the DNA.
Deontay Rizillis appeared to listen intently today as a pair of high-profile DNA experts were called to testify in his murder trial.
I built the DNA databases that helped us determine how often we would expect to find these markers in a population.
Statistically, the samples on the knife and belt were more likely to be Deontay's than anyone else on Earth. Curiously, the defense pointed out, of the 2 knives found on the scene, the one left in the bathtub was determined to be the murder weapon. This knife, however, did not have Deontay's DNA. It was found to carry only Justin's and his mother's. The defense also pointed to complaints and concerns made against the county's crime lab a year after Deontay's arrest. A private forensic expert had called out the lab after discovering its technicians were falsely claiming certain types of DNA evidence were conclusive.
Investigation by the American Society of Crime Lab Directors that found the crime lab has been using faulty methods to conduct DNA tests, including the introduction of a suspect's DNA before the analysis was done, and invalid analysis involving complex mixed DNA samples.
The concerns led to a review of about 2,000 cases by the state attorney's office. However, there did not seem to be any clear link between these complaints or any inaccuracies in the testing in Deontay's case.
There's quite a lot of consideration has to be undertaken to ensure that there's no cross-contamination from one item to another.
But the defendant's DNA would have to be there to be transferred.
Okay.
You're just having an issue with the numbers.
That's correct.
Thank you. Nothing more.
Additionally, the prosecution presented evidence that Deontay's cell phone went unusually quiet during the exact period of time that the attack on Jill had occurred.
His DNA is in the point of entry. And it is at least 3.79 octillion times more likely that it originated from him, and that's a single source. Even the defense's expert didn't have a problem with that one. She's sitting there in that tub, tied up, watching this guy stand over her with a knife, and he starts stabbing. She's already fought with him, she's already raised her arms, and she gets killed.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence in this case is wholly lacking. It does not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Vasilis committed this murder.
On the 8th of December 2021, after 5 days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on the lesser count of manslaughter. As standard procedure, the jury was polled individually following the declaration of the verdict to ensure each juror was in agreement. In a moment rarely seen in these proceedings, one juror spoke up. This juror, the foreperson, declared that they did not agree with the determination of manslaughter after all. This was a compromise, she said, made with 3 jurors who felt uncomfortable sending Deontay as a black man to a potential death sentence. The judge declared a mistrial.
I just thought, like, is this what I am agreeing to, or is this what I'm being forced to do? There was a lot of conflict, a lot of disagreements.
She is the one who fills the paperwork out and turns it into the bailiff, who turns it into the judge. So there was nobody making her literally do anything. It was all in her own handwriting. We were very frustrated. I don't think anybody was ever made to feel bad about their vote up until that point. I just think that needs to be known. This was not a black versus white jury. There was not a lot of yelling. It was mostly very respectful.
Jury selection for the retrial began on the 3rd of January 2022. Deontay's retrial followed a similar pattern to the first. Based on the conclusions of the previous jury, it seemed unlikely that reasonable doubt would be found by the new jury either. Additionally, evidence of his escape from the county jail, as well as the conspiracy to falsify evidence in his murder trial, including his alibi, were outlined in detail as proof of his consciousness of guilt.
The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment. So say we all is 18th day of March, 2022 at Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida, and it's signed by the...
This time, there was no dissent from the jury. Prosecutors opted not to pursue the death sentence by request of Jill's family. Deontay took the stand at his sentencing hearing.
I would never take a wife from her husband. I would never take a mother from my child. They can hook me up to a polygraph test at any given time. Ask me any question they wish, and my answer will remain the same. I did not kill Mrs. Su. And that's all I have to say. And to my family, I love y'all. I don't want y'all, don't cry for me.
The only person on the entire planet that knows the last words of my mother, that psychopath right there.
No lie, because everything he said is against the fact.
Was it difficult for you to sit there and listen to that? I saw you at times just shaking your head.
Of course it's difficult, because I don't want to sit there and listening to all the lie. And he's lying very well.
In May 2022, Deontay Vasilis was sentenced to life in prison. Even if he had been granted some leniency in the sentencing on the murder conviction, he had racked up decades of imprisonment for his other criminal activity. He was undeniably guilty of 2 previous burglary charges, multiple counts related to his jailhouse escape, and another 37 charges for his conspiracy to create false evidence. And that was the story of Deontay Vasilis and the tragic death of Jill Halliburton Su. Thanks once again for joining me.